Did you know that Henry Cavill was almost late to accept the role of Superman because he was too busy playing a video game? Legend has it he missed the call from director Zack Snyder because he was immersed in World of Warcraft. Little did he know that call would change his life and the future of the Superman legacy. This simple slip of timing points to the surprising twists and passion behind Man of Steel, the 2013 film that sought to reimagine the world's most famous superhero. Let's explore how director Zack Snyder, producer Christopher Nolan, and Henry Cavill teamed up to create a new Clark Kent for a new era. 1. Cavill cast for fresh Superman start, producer Christopher Nolan and director Zack Snyder started the entire Man of Steel process by hunting for a fresh face to don the red cape. They felt the franchise needed a new star who wasn't already huge in Hollywood. That's where Henry Cavill entered the picture. For years, Cavill had been on the cusp of major roles. He was famously a contender for James Bond before Daniel Craig claimed it, and his near misses gave him a hunger to break through. When Snyder and Nolan considered him, they sensed a spark they couldn't ignore. He was physically imposing, but also carried a quiet humility that seemed right for Clark Kent. 2. Snyder saw magic in Reeves' suit test. Snyder confirmed his hunch by having Cavill wear Christopher Reeves' classic Superman suit from the 1970s. Even though the bright spandex was outdated by modern standards, Cavill walked on set with such dignity and confidence that Snyder knew he'd found his Superman. Nobody even cared if the fit was a tad off, or if the cape looked worn. The way Cavill held himself erased all doubts. A moment like that, Snyder later recalled, can give a director chills, realizing a global icon is right before your eyes, ready to step into the role. 3. Cavill had almost played Superman before. This wasn't Cavill's first brush with Krypton. Years earlier, he'd auditioned for Superman Returns, 2006, but lost out to Brandon Routh. At the time, Cavill took it gracefully, deciding that if the universe wanted him to play Superman, the chance would reappear. So when he finally got the call from Snyder's team, he was more than ready. He described it as a circle completed, feeling that all those prior near misses gave him a deeper appreciation for the character and the responsibility it carried. 4. Adams fought hard to be Lois. Meanwhile, Amy Adams, who ended up playing Lois Lane, had also circled the Superman orbit. She'd auditioned for earlier attempts to reboot the franchise, never quite landing the part. By the time Man of Steel rolled around, she was a known name in Hollywood, a 3-time Oscar nominee, yet she still had to fight to secure Lois. Ultimately, her blend of warmth, wit, and no-nonsense attitude won over the producers. She credited the script for giving Lois an active role rather than being just a damsel in distress. From the start, Adams planned to show that while Lois might admire Superman, she's also fiercely independent. 5. Crowe gave Jor-El fatherly depth. Russell Crowe stepped in as Jor-El, Superman's biological father. Crowe admitted the concept intrigued him, playing the father of an alien child who'd become Earth's greatest hero. He'd never done anything quite like it. He drew on memories of paternal figures he'd respected, men who were wise, strong, and nurturing. This gave Jor-El a certain gravitas and paternal warmth. The scenes of him guiding Kal-El, even beyond the grave via holograms, resonated because Crowe managed to convey both Kryptonian nobility and fatherly concern. 6. Krypton scenes felt like a full movie. Krypton's opening scenes are some of the most visually striking in the film. Zack Snyder approached them like an epic sci-fi short film, jam-packed with exotic creatures, advanced technology, and a deeply ingrained culture. He wanted to avoid the sterile look of earlier Kryptons, where everything was white or crystal. Instead, he and his design team gave us a planet throbbing with life and grand architecture. For some viewers, the first 20 minutes felt like a whole different movie, complete with giant creatures and elaborate sets. Snyder confessed that if he'd had more time, he could have made an entire feature just about Krypton's downfall. 7. Shannon studied dictators for Zod. Michael Shannon took on the role of General Zod, one of the film's main antagonists. Shannon prepared by studying footage of real-life dictators, observing how they carry themselves, how they speak with unshakable conviction. Yet Shannon insisted Zod wasn't purely evil. He believed he was saving Krypton's legacy. This gave the character depth. Zod's not cackling with glee, but rather mourning his lost planet and doing whatever it takes to resurrect Krypton's future. That quiet sense of righteousness makes Zod's clashes with Superman more tragic and complex. 8. Suit hid Kryptonian text, no trunks. Costumes were pivotal in forging the film's aesthetic. The costume designer, Michael Wilkinson, wanted an alien look for Superman's suit, weaving Kryptonian script into the suit's texture, like hidden messages from Clark's heritage. Meanwhile, the iconic red trunks from the comics were removed. Snyder felt modern audiences might giggle at the trunks. Some fans loved the sleek redesign, calling it more warrior-like, while others missed the nostalgic charm of the briefs. That debate raged online, showing just how invested people are in Superman's outfit. 9. Cavill's training was brutal and real. Henry Cavill's physical transformation was intense. He worked with Mark Twight, a fitness guru who'd sculpted the Spartan bodies in 300. Day after day, Cavill sweated through brutal regimens, stacking on muscle. He wanted to embody a Kryptonian who, by earthly standards, was almost godlike in physique. He avoided CGI for muscle definition. The film's creators insisted that the audience should see a real man beneath the suit. Cavill joked that he was never hungrier than during those months, as the diet was strict and high-protein to maintain that Herculean form. 10. First time in suit gave Cavill chills. The first time Cavill donned the new, trunkless costume in front of a mirror, he reportedly felt a surge of adrenaline. It dawned on him that he was no longer just Henry Cavill, actor. He was an emblem of hope for millions of fans. He said that moment made him almost tear up, realizing that wearing the S on your chest is an honor few get. From that day forward, he approached the role with a seriousness that matched the big budget and big expectations. 11. Flight scenes used wires plus green screen. Zack Snyder's approach to filming flight scenes blended practical wire work with green screen environments. For Clark's first attempt at flight, they hoisted Cavill via wires in a giant studio, creating gusts of wind to ruffle his cape. Post-production teams layered in epic mountain backdrops and swirling dust. Cavill found it exhilarating, like being on a playground apparatus for grown-ups. Yet the illusion was tough. Every muscle had to look relaxed while carrying the weight of multiple wires and harnesses. 12. Diane Lane brought quiet maternal strength. Diane Lane signed on as Martha Kent, hoping to anchor the film's more emotional beats. She said she saw Martha as a quiet force, fiercely protective of her son, but never overshadowing him. Lane embraced the idea that mothers shape their children's moral compasses. That's why, even though Martha has fewer scenes compared to Kryptonian battles, her presence lingers. She's the heart that urges Clark to choose humanity over raw power, a theme Lane felt was vital in an action-saturated story. 13. Costner's tornado scene brought real emotion. Kevin Costner played Jonathan Kent, a gentle father figure with a big moral dilemma: how to raise an alien child to be a good man in a flawed world. The tornado scene, where Jonathan signals Clark to stay back, was a tearjerker for both Costner and Cavill. They filmed it in punishing conditions, fierce winds, chaos all around. Between takes, the two found themselves feeling the emotional weight of a father's sacrifice. For many fans, that scene shaped the film's entire moral axis, showing the price of Jonathan's unwavering principle to keep Clark's secret safe. Budget topped $200 million, a massive gamble. The film cost over $200 million, Warner Brothers' monstrous bet that Snyder, guided by Christopher Nolan's producing wisdom, could resurrect Superman's big-screen popularity. The Dark Knight trilogy had proven that DC heroes could be box-office gold if handled with gravitas. Snyder's 300 had showcased epic visuals. Merging the two styles, the studio believed, would yield a fresh, modern Superman. The gamble paid off financially, though some argued the tone veered too dark for a character meant to symbolize hope. 15. Zimmer skipped the classic Superman theme. Hans Zimmer scored the soundtrack, deliberately avoiding the iconic John Williams theme from Superman, 1978. Zimmer wanted an earthy, percussive approach, capturing Clark's confusion and resilience. He used pounding drums and sorrowful strings to underscore the film's introspective edge, culminating in a stirring crescendo whenever Superman's powers manifested. Some purists missed Williams's triumphant fanfare, but many embraced Zimmer's new theme as a reflection of a raw, searching hero. 16. Clark's inner turmoil took center stage. Snyder kept saying he wanted to dissect Clark's psyche. Past Superman adaptations rarely explored the psychological toll of being different, but Man of Steel shows Clark drifting from job to job, haunted by unstoppable powers he can't fully unleash. Snyder wanted a world where discovering you're an alien triggers anxiety, not immediate triumph. It's a reflective angle that both thrilled and puzzled fans who were used to the smiling all-American do-gooder. 17. Smallville fight was stunt-heavy chaos. The big fight in Smallville demanded weeks of fight choreography. The stunt team blocked out each slam through buildings, each super punch. The aim was to show that these Kryptonians moved with unstoppable force. Cast members had to rehearse wire lifts and high-speed cable pulls, designed to fling them across sets like rag dolls. The results were a hyperkinetic showdown that left audiences breathless. Even veteran stunt pros said it was among the most complex brawls they'd ever staged. 18. Fiora's fight style was fierce and fluid. Anya Traor's performance as Fiora, Zod's deadly lieutenant, stood out. She performed many stunts herself, having a background in sports and martial arts. The film's choreographers designed her moves to feel fluid, yet brutally efficient, as if Fiora was a living weapon. Traore accidentally whacked a few co-stars with her unstoppable hits, but they took it in stride, figuring some real bruises heightened the authenticity on screen. 19. Metropolis fight mirrored disaster films. The Metropolis showdown with Zod borrowed inspiration from disaster films. Snyder intended to show that when near gods clash, cities can crumble like sandcastles. Shots of collapsing skyscrapers evoked a modern sense of catastrophic realism. The production combined large-scale practical effects, car wrecks, broken pavement, dust clouds, with heavy CGI for the towering debris. It made for a visually jaw-dropping but morally disturbing finale. Some fans relished it as a must for depicting unstoppable Kryptonian might, while others found it too unsettling. 20. Cavill felt weight of destruction. Cavill himself felt uneasy about the widespread city destruction. He understood the script's logic. Clark was still learning to use his powers, so preventing all casualties was beyond him. The moral weight of failing to save everyone weighed on him, giving the final act a darker tone than most superhero flicks. For Cavill, it was a sign that Man of Steel tried a realistic lens. Unstoppable fights cause unstoppable collateral damage. 21. Superman killing Zod sparked huge debate. The decision for Superman to kill Zod sparked huge debate. In the script, it's framed as a desperate choice. Zod threatened innocent lives, and there was no other way. Zack Snyder defended it, explaining that it showed Clark's heartbreak at taking a life. For many watchers, it felt jarringly out of step with the Superman who never kills. The internet lit up with arguments. Was it a bold update or a betrayal of decades of comic tradition? Snyder believed it was essential to highlight the severity of the situation and the depth of Superman's sorrow. 22. Cavill poured emotion into Zod's scene. Henry Cavill described shooting that final scene as draining. He wanted the audience to feel Clark's devastation in each sob. Some fans hated it, claiming Superman should always find a better way. Others praised the film for forging a new path, arguing that a modern world's challenges might push even Superman to the brink. Either way, the controversy guaranteed the movie would be talked about for years. 23. Snyder said heroes face hard choices. Snyder borrowed a motto from his father: "Heroes make hard choices." He interpreted that as an excuse to show moral complexity. If the film avoided moral dilemmas, it would just be another hero smashing through villains. But by confronting Clark with impossible scenarios, Snyder aimed to ground Superman in a realistic moral framework. In the process, he introduced a gritty style that would later characterize the DC Extended Universe. $24.668 million box office launched DCEU. When Man of Steel premiered in June 2013, it raked in more than $668 million globally. Strong numbers, though maybe not on the level of Marvel's biggest hits. Critics were sharply divided. Some applauded its epic scope and emotional arcs, others deemed it too somber for Superman. Fans, too, had mixed feelings. Yet the box office haul convinced Warner Brothers to fast-track a sequel. That quickly morphed into Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, launching a cinematic universe to stand alongside Marvel's. The pressure on Cavill soared as he realized he'd be crossing paths with DC's other icons. 25. Kryptonian culture intrigued fans. Many fans admired how the film portrayed Kryptonian culture, less ephemeral crystal cities and more tangible designs. The beginning felt like a separate sci-fi adventure, giving us a taste of Krypton's warlike ethos. Some watchers enjoyed it so much they wanted a prequel set entirely on Krypton's final days. Others found it too lengthy, preferring more earthbound content. But the consensus was that Krypton in Man of Steel was dynamic, fleshing out the planet in ways earlier Superman adaptations never had. 26. Cavill remained passionate about the role. Henry Cavill continued refining the role in subsequent DC movies. Though controversies swirled around those films, Cavill remained enthusiastic about exploring Clark's dual identity. He spoke passionately in interviews about Superman's core decency, acknowledging how Man of Steel gave him a bedrock to build upon. The push and pull between hopeful symbol and reluctant demigod intrigued him. Even as the DC cinematic landscape shifted, Cavill was game to revisit that tension in future storylines. 27. Snyder saw Clark as immigrant metaphor. Director Zack Snyder has sometimes described Man of Steel as a personal reflection on immigration and identity. He sees Superman's story paralleling that of an outsider searching for acceptance in a new homeland. Clark's struggles to adapt, his worry about acceptance, and his ultimate pledge to protect humanity echo real immigrant experiences. This angle resonated with some viewers, making the film more poignant. Others found it a stretch, just wanting a classic superhero vibe. Either way, it illustrated Snyder's desire to layer meaning beneath the suits and capes. 28. debates continue over tone and darkness. A decade on, Man of Steel still triggers fierce discussions about how Superman should be portrayed. Some prefer the lighter, more optimistic approach of Christopher Reeve's era. Others champion Snyder's attempt to show a psychologically burdened Clark. Debates swirl over how much darkness is appropriate for the world's greatest hero, but those fierce arguments highlight how deeply people care about Superman's symbol of hope, and how Man of Steel redefined that symbol for a new generation. 29. Redefined superhero tone post-2013. Love it or hate it, the film undeniably shook up superhero norms. It ditched the wisecracking comedic approach seen in many Marvel projects, opting for grand mythic imagery and moral gravity. The effect on subsequent DC Extended Universe entries was huge, from the tone of Batman v Superman to the aesthetic of Justice League. Warner Brothers recognized that superhero fans could handle heavier themes if the stories were compelling enough. Man of Steel stands as the foundation for that entire creative direction. Ultimately, Man of Steel remains a milestone in superhero cinema. It proved that even the oldest superhero can be reimagined to reflect contemporary anxieties and complexities. The cast, Henry Cavill, Amy Adams, Michael Shannon, and others, brought layered performances that balanced blockbuster spectacle with genuine emotional stakes. The big controversies, from the trunkless suit to Zod's demise, ensured that nobody left the theater without an opinion. And while the debate about "is it too dark" persists, the movie's boldness in showing a flawed, searching Clark means it can't be dismissed as just another forgettable reboot. For many, Man of Steel validated that sometimes heroes must face harrowing choices, and that the path to wearing that red S with pride might be paved with heartbreak and learning. That's why, a decade later, we're still dissecting it, because it dared to show that even a godlike figure can wrestle with moral burdens and question his place on Earth, just like the rest of us.